In lesson 11, we are talking about representing proportional relationships, and we will be representing them with tables, graphs, and equations. This is on page 94 in your book. This is the third time I've started this recording, so hopefully Screencastify will not crash again. Jesse is making punch. For every 3 cups of juice, he needs 6 cups of seltzer. Represent this proportional relationship using a table, a graph, and an equation. Identify the constant of proportionality. What does the constant of proportionality represent in this situation? That is a lot going on in one question. So if we break it down, he's making punch. So he's taking 3 cups of some kind of juice and he's putting in seltzer water. Seltzer water is just turning your juice carbonated. It doesn't have any flavor, it's just bubbly water. Our question is first asking us to represent in a table, a graph, an equation. Like I said, we're going to be working on. But then it also wants you to identify the constant of proportionality. And remember, constant of proportionality is the same thing as the unit rate. So it also wants us to find the unit rate. And then it says, what does the constant of proportionality represent in this situation? So in this story, what do those numbers mean? That's what it's asking you. So they already have a graph, the table, the graph, and the equation. We will come back to those as we answer our questions. So this one is on page 95. In the table on the previous page, what does the ratio 2 to 1 represent in terms of the problem? So my original ratio was 6 to 3, that he took 6 cups of seltzer for every 3 cups of juice, and then that was turned into the unit rate of 2 over 1. So what does that represent? It represents 2 cups of seltzer I had to go back and look up how to spell seltzer. Seltzer. 2 cups of seltzer for every 1 cup of juice. In question 3, they're asking us in the graph, what does the point 2, 4 represent? Remember, in a graph, in the ordered pair, the x is the first number and the y is the second number. So we need to figure out what it means if x is 2 and y equals 4. So if I go back to my graph up here, my x is actually, they called it J for juice. So if my x is 2 and my seltzer is 4, that means 2 cups of juice for every 4 cups of seltzer. So what does it represent on the graph? 2 cups juice for 4 cups seltzer. And which point on the graph can be used to find the constant of proportionality? Remember, the constant of proportionality is the same thing as the unit rate. And the unit rate has to have the number 1 in it. So when you're trying to find the constant of proportionality, you're looking at the point where the x-axis is 1 unit. So we're looking for our x-axis to be 1. So if I go back to the graph, I'm looking at where is 1. For 1 on the x-axis, it is 2 cups of seltzer. So at what point on the graph which point on the graph can be used to find the constant of proportionality? That would be point 1, 2. Because 1 is the seltzer for 1 for the juice for 2 cups of the seltzer. Question 5 says use the constant of proportionality to write an equation to represent Z, the number of cups of seltzer you need for J cups of juice. Well, they actually started that for us already. So if I look back at where it says the equation part, so the model it says that we can use the amount of seltzer is going to be the constant of proportionality, which we found out was 2, times how much juice you need. And I need to figure out what the variables they told us to use were. So they told us to have Z be the number of cups of seltzer. So the seltzer, they tell us, has to be Z equals our constant of proportionality we found was 2 times the amount of juice. They told us to use J for juice. But when you're writing an equation, you don't usually do keep the multiply dot in there. So our equation is just going to be Z equals 2J. So back here, what is our equation? Z equals 2J. So whatever juice you have, you multiply it by 2 to get the seltzer. Question 6 says use the equation you wrote in problem 5 to find the amount of seltzer you need if you have 15 cups of juice. Well, that's going to be our J. So I can take this equation. We're trying to figure out how much seltzer you'll get for 15 cups of juice. So we're going to replace the juice with 15. So 2 times 15 will be 30. So we will need 30 cups of seltzer if we have 15 cups of juice. Now question 7, or actually let's look back and see if we've answered every part of the question. Did we represent in a table, graph, and an equation? We have a table. We have a graph that we didn't make, but they made for us, where they went over 3 juice up 6 cups of seltzer, and then the point 0, 0. We could have also graphed all of the points in the table if we wanted to. And then we found the equation. So we have done the first part. We have represented in a table, a graph, and equation. Did we identify the constant of proportionality? Yes, we did. We said the constant of proportionality was 2. And did we say what the constant of proportionality represents in this situation? We did not. It did not answer that question, unless I'm confused. So, because we don't have any point where it says 2. Oh, yes, it does. That was our very first question, number 2. What does the ratio 2/1 represent in terms of the problem? 2 cups of seltzer for every 1 cup of juice. So we have answered every part of this question. Now 7 has a different juice recipe. So for a different punch recipe, the equation Z equals 4C represents the number of cups of seltzer you need for C cups of cranberry juice. What is the constant of proportionality? So in this one, the constant of proportionality, it's whatever is multiplied by your variable. So our constant of proportionality is going to be 4. Why? Because that's where it goes in the equation. But it's also, you will take whatever your constant of proportionality is times the number to get the other number. I struggle with this. I am changing this because it's hurting my brain. I like it more with y because I know y is the y-axis equals 4x. So how does this work? If the constant of proportionality is 4, you will multiply 4 times all your x, whatever your x value is. So 4 times, in this case, x is cranberry juice. So 4 times how much cranberry juice you have equals how much seltzer you're going to need. I don't know why they make this so complicated. On question 7, the 4, whatever number is that, is the constant of proportionality. So in the equation, it's the 4. Now try number 8 and 9 and then check it with the video. So question 10, if we have 2 pounds of apples or $7, I first found the unit rate. So I divided 7 divided by 2, that should be a dollar sign to get $3.50. So the unit rate is $3.50. But it says that we need to represent it as an equation. So I know it's going to be how much it costs. I started with words because I was getting confused. How much it costs is going to equal $3.50 times how many pounds there are. And I did that like they did in the was that the model it part? That was the model it part on the previous page. And then they tell me to use C for cost. So the cost equals the unit rate, $3.50 times how many pounds. They told me to use A for pounds of apples. So I have to use A. So my equation is C equals 3.50A, which would also be the standard way is going to be Y equals 3.5x. So if it had the coordinates, the cost is the y-axis and the apple pounds is the x-axis. Now try number 9. So in number 9, the constant of proportionality is 32. And what does it represent in this situation? Remember, it's a unit rate, so it's 32 something for 1 something. So if we're talking about miles and gallons, so 32. So 32 is how much the average number of miles that a car will go not in, on, or with. So how can we say that? That a car will go, say using 1 gallon of gas. So I would take 32 times how many gallons of gas we put in the car, and that will say how far the car will go. So if I had 100 gallons of gas, I would do 32 times 100 to get that it will go 3,200 miles. So the 32 is how many miles? It will go in 1 gallon of gas.